We heal as one.
Sorry everybody, it's Xilicks here, and welcome to a new Guild Wars 2 guild video. So I got a request, actually a couple requests for people asking for an updated version of the insane DPS critical ranger build. So this is just that, updated for Heart of Thorns, the current version of the game. If you're in the future, the date this video is uploaded will be in the title, so you can see if this is outdated or not. But this is a very risky ranger build. Berserker Amulet, not Marauder. You can run Marauder if you want, for the extra vitality. It is going to make you live a little bit longer, but honestly, you don't need it. Like, you need it if you're going to be fighting on points, but for the most part, you're just going to kind of show up to a point, kill everyone there, and leave. Maybe 1v1 people on home and far. And you will have the survivability means to survive a 1v1. Going over the pets first, we have the Bristleback. This is a new pet in Heart of Thorns. As you can see, its special ability is going to be doing a lot of damage, especially when you give it some boons. Like just there with the vulnerability from Opening Strike, it's going to do over half to this heavy golem. Now obviously, in actual PvP, you're going to get different types of damage to players, but a decent amount of power, kind of low precision, but whatever. The toughness is very high, which is nice. This pet's going to be living for a long time. It has 16k health and a high amount of toughness, so it's going to be surviving for a while. Then the next pet we're using is the Wolf. The Wolf is pretty standard in my opinion for Power Ranger, just because it has the Fear, which is going to mean you can get some of your combos off with Rapid Fire or Maul a lot easier. And also, the Wolf just generally does a lot of damage. It has a cripple and a knockdown on it, and just a lot of CC is good for builds like these, because if your opponent is stunned or CC'd, it's pretty much free damage. Then looking at our weapons, as I showed, we are using the Greatsword Longbow combo. On our Longbow, we're going to have Fire Air, just to get the most damage out of our rapid fires and our auto attacks from long range, all that stuff, barrage, blah blah blah. And on the Greatsword, we're gonna have the Hydromancy Sigil instead of fire, also the air. The Hydromancy Sigil is nice because chilling your opponent is pretty good on Ranger, because it means you can gap close with stuff like lightning reflexes, or if you are running Entangle, you can immobilize them and then chill them once the immobilize runs off, just for extra annoyance. Then, as I mentioned, we're using Berserker Amulet. You can run Marauder you want. You can also run Assassin. Assassin's not really worth it, in my opinion. You're going to have a lot of crit chance in combat. But yeah, there's options. You could also try and do stuff like Knights, or experiment with some of the newer amulets. Personally, I just think Berserker's going to be the best, because you're going to be staying at range. And then the Ranger Runes, which is going to be giving us extra damage, extra precision, extra ferocity, all that good stuff. Looking at our traits, I'm not using Druid. I know a lot of power builds recently have been using Druid, but I'm going to be using Marksman, Skirmishing, Beast Mastery. Now, as I said, since I'm not using Marauder Amulet, I'm just trying to be as frail as possible. We will have ways to survive, but this build, because of lack of Druid and lack of Marauder, you're going to be very weak to Revenant. You're going to be pretty weak to some variants of Guardian, depending on what kind of build they're running. And you're also going to have a hard time with some Mesmer builds. But Thief should be pretty easy to deal with. Necromancer is going to be pretty easy to deal with if you can keep him at range. And then just situational stuff like Warrior depends, everything depends. But for the most part, you're not going to be trying to 1v1. You can. It's definitely possible. But you're going to be really glassy. So looking into Marksman, obviously, we have Opening Strike, Alpha Training, and then Precise Strike. This is just nice. 10 Vuln at the start of every fight on one target. It's pretty good. For these traits here, you can take Enlargement if you want. Personally, I'm not using it, but it is going to be really nice because, as I said, you're frail. So you're going to be knocked below that 50% a lot. and the stability and might you're going to get from it is going to be pretty good, and you know, like the extra damage and all that stuff. But I'm going to go with Call of the Wind just because I like it more, honestly. I like getting Fury in combat and the might and the swiftness because I'm just trying to do as much damage as possible, and I don't really think the enlargement is going to be worth it because most of the time we're going to be far away from our targets, so that might not even proc. In a 1v1 scenario, enlargement would probably be better. So that's just up to you which one you'd want. For the middle trait, I'm pretty sure Bruges Seal is going to be the best one, just because Signa Stone is like our only very reliable form of staying alive. 6 seconds of invulnerability is nice. It lets you, you know, get off a heal or get off some damage if you're taking a lot of pressure. And because this trait, it'll be on a lower cooldown, and we'll get some extra might from it. This build is going to generate a lot of might very quickly, which is obviously very good since we're going the power route. Now, with the last line, all 3 of these traits are good. You can either take Predator's Onslaught for the extra damage whenever they're stunned, crippled, blah, blah, blah. We're going to be doing a lot of that. So if you want the flat damage, then this trait is what I'd recommend. For the middle, you do extra damage on your first attack, and you get that extra damage proc and the Vaughn proc every time you gain Fury. So this trait is also really good. But personally, I take Lead the Wind just because it's going to make our arrows pierce. So if we are in even ground at like a midpoint or something, and we go for a rapid fire, it's going to be piercing, which you can do a lot of damage to a lot of people at once. It's also going to lower our cooldowns. Now, the cooldown on rapid fire is going to have something else lowering it. So you'll be able to use it more often, which will be nice. And you'll see that in a moment. But yeah, for this last slot, take whichever trait you think is better for you. I'd recommend Lead the Wind, though. Then for Skirmishing, this line's all about weapon swapping as far as the minor traits go. We're going to be gaining Swiftness on weapon swap. We're going to gain Fury on weapon swap. And then this is nice because it means we're going to be getting extra critical chance whenever we're flanking our opponent. So yeah, if people turn their back to us or if we attack someone from behind, we're going to be getting the extra crit chance. We don't really need to focus on keeping that, but it's something to keep in mind while in combat. Then looking at our first trait, I'd recommend Primal Reflexes because obviously, you know, dodge roll is one of the best ways to stay alive, and Vigor is going to keep us dodging. So once you dodge one attack, you're going to get extra Vigor, which will let you dodge more. You can take Trapper's Expertise if you're using the Trap heal, or if you decide to use a Trap in one of your other skills. And for Sharpened Edges, this isn't really worth it unless you're running Condi, in my opinion. It is nice just because there's no internal cooldown on it, and we're going to be critting a lot, so you can stack a lot of bleeds for extra damage. And with our might, our bleeding is going to be doing more damage, but I feel like the Vigor is going to be better just because this will keep us alive, and we are going to need some means of keeping us alive while in combat. Our next trait, Spotter. This is pretty obvious to me. You know, increasing all of your allies' crit chance is really nice because we are going to be a team fighter for the most part. It does have 600 range, so you got to keep that in mind while in combat. If you're on top of midpoint in Forest of Niflhel, like if you're on one of the sides, the elevated parts, you will be giving Spotter to all your allies in that area. So it's very good to keep that in mind. Good for mid fights. Just keep in mind the radius of it. Strider's Defense isn't really worth it, and Hidden Barbs. If you do decide to take Sharpened Edges, you could take Hidden Barbs. This could potentially be better in a 1v1 scenario, just doing extra bleed damage in general. So if you think about it like with a Thief, if you land a rapid fire on them, you might get a couple stacks of bleed out of it, and you'll be getting might. And the Hidden Barbs will make the bleeds do more damage if they decide to stealth or whatever after the rapid fire. Or, you know, if they're dodging, they're going to be taking that bleed damage. So it's just something to keep in mind. For the last trait, in my opinion, Quick Draw is the best. You can also take Most Dangerous Game. If you do take Most Dangerous Game, I'd recommend taking Enlargement, as these two traits will proc at the same time, and you'll get a big burst of might and stability and just all that at once. And once you drop below 50%, you're going to be doing a ton of damage if you take both of those traits. So it's just something to keep in mind. As far as light on your feet, again, this is kind of the Condi line. If you do want to have a Condi hybrid, like if you do take all three of those traits, then I would recommend Shortbow instead of Greatsword. But really, the bleeding isn't that worth it unless it's the playstyle you want to have. Then you can go for that. Beast Mastery, I decided to take. Now, if you do have Heart of Thorns, which I do, but not everyone watching this video may have Heart of Thorns. But if you do have Heart of Thorns, you can take Druid. Now, Druid is going to be giving you a lot of survivability. It's going to be giving you heals to yourself and your allies. And it does have some decent damage bonuses. And then you can also take some of the glyphs in your skills. Personally, I'm going to take Beastmaster because, one, it's going to be doing more damage than Druid. Personal DPS. With Druid, you can make other people do more damage. But for personal DPS, you're going to be doing more damage with Beast Mastery. And Druid is nice to have the healing. But I really just want to nuke in the current meta. Just because if we take a look at the amulets, you know, they got rid of Celestial. They got rid of Sentinel. They got rid of all of those really, really defensive amulets. Now, there are still defensive options, but for the most part right now, everyone is running either like Marauder or Viper. You might see the occasional Cleric on like a Druid or whatever. So people aren't running that defensive of amulets. You know, most of the amulets you're going to be seeing are like defensive but offensive at the same time. So things like Marauder. Since I'm taking Berserker, we're going Beast Mastery. So Beast Mastery, you know, stuff with your pet, buffing your pet, which is going to be making our Wolf and Bristleback have more abilities. You know, extra power, extra skill recharge, extra damage, extra recharge on this, the weapon swap on combat, and then they move faster and have more ferocity, which is really nice. I'm going to be taking Resounding Timber because personally I'm going with 2 shouts. If you are running Entangle instead of Strength of the Pack, I guess you can go Companion Might or go for the Eyes if you want. But personally, Resounding Timber, the regen and swiftness is going to be nice, and the recharge reduction is pretty good in my opinion. Then next up, we have Two-Handed Training. This is going to be making our Greatsword do more. If you don't want to use Greatsword, or if you don't want this trait, which I don't know why you wouldn't, honestly. But if you don't, probably Natural Healing. And then if not Natural Healing, I guess you can go for the Weakness, but that's personal preference. For the last one, you can take the Taunt trait if you want. The Taunt is fairly useful. 2-second Taunt means they're not going to be attacking you. This is probably better in a 1 versus 1 scenario, but if we are in team fights, I'm going to recommend Zephyr Speed for the extra quickness and the extra might whenever you swap your pet. So yeah, that's about it for the build. Just going over the skills, we have 2 shouts, Strength of the Pack, Resounding Timber. We heals 1, which get affected by Resounding Timber. And then we have 2 stun breaks. We have Quickening Zephyr for quickness. We have Lightning Reflexes for a stun break. Some Vigor, removes a mob, does a little bit of damage, and it's an evade. Very good skill. And then we're going to have Signet Stone for the immune. As far as other things you can take Signet of the Wild, or you can take one of the traps, probably either the Chill Trap or Spike Trap. That's on you. You can also consider more shouts, like Sikkim, Protect Me, could be good. Guard, really anything. Any shout you want. Or you can take a Spirit. This is what I go with. I've tried this a couple times in fights, and it's just really good at nuking players. So as I showed at the start of the video, if you activate your pet skill, and I messed up that, but you'd want to activate Strength of the Pack, and then we heals 1, and I mean, look right there, 60 might. The pet's gonna get a lot of that might as well. Yeah, just a lot of boons. Very, very good opener. Because of quick draw, you know, you can do stuff like this. You can rapid fire, and then you can switch to maul, and then in like 1 second you can maul again. So yeah, big openers, big damage, really nice build. So yeah, obviously this build isn't for everyone. If you play more defensively, don't use this build. This is a very offensive yellow build. So yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Thanks for watching. Leave suggestions in the comments if you want. I'll see you guys next time. Okay, thanks, bye.